Welcome to the show. We hope you have a blast. Thanks for making time for the Dealer Talk podcast. Another business leader, here's a penny for your thoughts. This ain't a regular conversation, baby. This that Dealer Talk. Yeah, this that Dealer Talk.
What up? Welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we have none other than Ali Reda back on the show. Ali, what's up, dude? How are you, man?
Hey, bud. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, dude. It's good to
Good to see you, bro. Yeah, man. Everything is good. Good to see you.
It's been a minute. And we also have, yeah, right. Thanks, man. And we also have a co-host with us. So introducing here on the show for the first time, Miss Charity Ann. What's up, Charity?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Good. So we typically kick things off with a background, but you've already done that. So why don't you just catch us up, man? The past couple of years, obviously there's been some crazy things happening. So tell us about that.
Man, everything's been good. You know, obviously, you know, the business has been challenging. You know, everybody's, you know, had their ups and downs. You know, one thing that I will say, we kind of stayed ahead of the curve with a lot of the changes that we had to make, and that played a pivotal role in us being still extremely successful throughout this period. So, you know, up until the last couple months where we really felt this inventory crunch come in, we've been good through COVID and you know, we've had some really good months, and this past, I think 2 months is where we kind of felt the inventory take a dive, and that's been a little bit challenging. But for the most part, man, we've been actually blessed. We've been really good. I can't complain about business at all. You know, you have to stay ahead of the curve, like everybody's talking about everywhere, right? And that's exactly what we did. And we put some new processes in place to kind of get us, you know, ahead of that. And I got to say, man, we've been pretty fortunate. We haven't felt it pretty hard yet at all. We've been pretty blessed.
Right on, man. Yeah, dude. I definitely want to talk to you a little bit more about that. Just your perspective on the whole COVID situation. But dude, is that a Brady jersey that I see back there? From the Michigan days?
Do you see which one? Do you see the Michigan one?
Yeah, man.
Good. I got a Michigan one. I got the Super Bowl jersey, dude. You know,
damn, bro.
You know that number 10 Tom Brady signed by Brady himself.
Oh, that's dope.
Pretty sweet. Yeah, pretty sweet jersey from Michigan.
Right on, man. What was that high school that everybody used to go to? Is it Fordson?
Fordson, yeah, man. I'm a Fordson grad. Yeah,
right on.
Yeah, I'm a Fordson grad, pretty good.
How are they doing, man?
They're doing pretty good, man. You know, they always have a good football team. They always got a lot of students. You know, Dearborn, we got 3 major high schools, and you know, they're always battling each other. But Fordson's definitely my favorite.
Right.
My kids are going to go to Dearborn High, so they're going to go to a different high school. So I don't know. I might have to move.
Very cool. So, all right, man. So going back to you know, to the auto thing.
Yeah.
So COVID, man, it was a crazy thing. I remember my perspective. I was like, dude, like, I don't even know what's going to happen. Like, I might not have accounts. Like, you know, dealers are going to slow down significantly. Nobody's going to want to go in to buy a car and all these things. And it took a turn to the, you know, completely opposite direction. What was your take on that? Like, what was your perspective? And then how did you kind of adjust to everything that was happening?
Yeah, I mean, going back, you know, thinking back to you know, when COVID first happened, you know, I think what scared everybody was the uncertainty, right? I mean, nobody knew actually what tomorrow was going to bring, and things kept getting worse and worse and worse in the country, all over the world for that matter. But, you know, I think you know, we were off for a couple of weeks. We were shut down, of course. You know, dealership was shut down. The whole state was shut down. And it was shut down for maybe 6 or 8 weeks. I don't remember exactly. But we took probably 2 weeks into it, and I was just like, I can't do this. There's no way I'm going to be sitting around doing nothing. And the whole world was upside down. So, you know, I'm a huge community guy. You know, I'm always involved with community ventures and giving back. So, you know, I think that first week, I'm like, man, I got to do something. So, you know, back then, if you remember, you couldn't get PPE, you couldn't get masks, you couldn't get anything, right? So I reached out to a lot of my contacts, and I was able to score, man, some huge supply of masks and PPE, and that was the period where nobody can get anything. And I ended up, the dealership was closed, so I funded it myself. I'm like, I'm just going to try to get these masks and go donate them. Well, the one thing that I realized, I said, I got these masks, and I'm like, why am I going to just drop them off at the hospital? Let me reach out to my clients who were nurses and doctors and family members that had nurses and doctors, and whoever needed it. And so I started like some mass text groups, and I'm like, hey, whoever needs masks, whoever's family members, a doctor, nurse, and all my clients, I just sent them out a message and said, hey, I have these masks. Anybody's interested, please reach out to me. And Herb, I'm telling you, dude, the thing just exploded, right? People were calling me like crazy. So rather than dropping them off at the hospital, my assistant and I we drove to everybody's house. So we're like, just send me the address, who needs it. We were off anyway. So I'm like, send me the address. They sent me the addresses, and I drove around to every individual's house and dropped off what I could and what they asked for. And, the outpour and the reach that we got was unbelievable. And I didn't do it for business reasons, right? I did it because I said, if they need my help, and I was in a position to help, right? And, people were crying. People were like, oh my God, my daughter's been wearing the same mask for a week now, and they were scared to let them go to work. And again, it was the uncertainty. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And these nurses were wearing masks for like a week, right? And that was just just to protect themselves. There was nothing else, right? We're not talking about cars, just the human side of things. And we did that, man. I did that for a few weeks. I just kept buying more and passing them out, buying more, passing them out. People started reaching out to me, and that whole thing, then I like, we got to get back to work. I said, we got to get back into the dealership. So,
but you guys were shut down completely, or your service department was open, or what?
We were shut down completely at that time.
Oh,
there was nothing going on. So we were completely shut down until, I think it took
How long were you guys shut down for?
I think it was maybe 6 weeks. I think it was up until then. I can't remember exactly, but up until then, we weren't essential, right? They had to come in and have a provision, a clause in there to say that, okay, dealerships are going to be essential and service departments are needed. So then our service department opened up, and I can't remember exactly the time frame on it, but then they opened up, and then I went back to work like maybe it was like 2 weeks after, and we just started getting ready to open. So rather than waiting for the state to say, okay, you guys are open now, go back to work, and then trying to figure out and plan things and what's business going to look like, what are we going to do? So we literally went back in, we brainstormed, we said, okay, well, we're already low on inventory. Back up a second, we came out of a strike. So the strike was like November, December, January. They get back to work, our supply is down to like 30 or 60 days, and we're normally at 120 days or 90 days. And then we came out of a strike and went right to COVID. So we're just like, we already had no cars. So and people were selling off. So we got together and we said, everybody's selling their inventory. Let's just buy some. I mean, we're going to need it anyways.
Yeah.
So we went out and we ended up buying maybe like 80 or 90 cars, what we can get. I wish I would have known, because I would have bought like 1,000. Because
I know, right?
Yeah. I would have been like, and we thought we were not sure, right? We didn't know what was going to happen. The manufacturer was backing off, and they stopped building, and they're just like, what are we going to do here? And I'm like, let's just buy something just so we have them. So we went out and bought all these cars, and that's one, we stayed ahead of the curve on that when everybody else was selling off. We got our facility ready. You needed signage, you needed verbiage. We needed, when the doors open, we were ready. So we had these huge banners, COVID, just different policies we had to change and stuff for employees. So it was literally like myself and the two owners that were brainstorming. I was a couple managers. And when we did finally open, business was different. We had to, they couldn't come inside. You had to go outside. You had to wear masks and all this other stuff. So, we made it through that.
It was like that scene. Did you ever see the movie Suckers?
Yeah.
When the guy takes the desk outside and is working the carpet outside.
It was bad. Dude, crazy, it was so bad. It was so bad.
It's crazy, yeah.
People were okay with it, but we just didn't know, how much business we were going to get. And people at that time, some were not working. It was just so much uncertainty that you couldn't guess the next move. I mean, you were literally living in that moment, and like you could have went either way and it would have been right or wrong. And
that was, for me, I think I work in business development, and when we didn't shut down at all, and those first couple of weeks that like, what was the conversation supposed to be? You know, hi, come buy a car, the world's ending.
Yeah.
And that was probably the most difficult thing for me, is trying to figure out how to have a conversation and
To stay
and continue
sensitive.
Yeah. But to
producing
Ali's
business.
point, but to Ali's point with the mask thing, and it's not, I know that it
Mhm.
wasn't a, hey, you know, I'm doing it for business reasons, but we had a reason to contact our customers now more
Right,
than ever.
exactly. Mhm.
Oh man, Herb, you're so on point, dude. I told so many people, because I did some calls in that, and I'm like, guys, I did a couple of things that I did. I mean, it was a huge entry point into your own community. So basically, if you had, you know, if you never had been involved with community, if you haven't been to that point, this was a great entry point to
Mhm.
say, I want to give back. I want to get involved. Dude, you could have did anything at that point, and then got your recognition, got your name out there. You know,
Yes.
ultimately you would have just built a brand name, right? You're doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it to help. And we weren't talking about cars. I didn't knock on the door and say, here's a mask, here's my card. I didn't, you know, I'm not being insensitive.
Right.
Right. It was literally, here's a mask. If you need anything, if you need any more, please call me. It's limited. I don't have that many, but if you're in a situation you need it, please reach out to me. And I would pass out accordingly to what I thought. And people to this day still remember that. I had a customer come in the other day, and she was like, I still can't believe you came to my house and dropped off a mask when I needed it. It was so minute and so small that it touched somebody. And, you know, that person's now emotionally attached to that story, right? They're attached to you in some sense. And that's an entry point to get into your community, right? People are like, always, how do I start? How do I get involved? Well, you just get back.
We forget the customers remember so much. On the other end of the spectrum, right now, the conversation that I'm having with my stores is, we got to be careful with these price increases, because although it's merited, customers aren't going to forget, man. Just as they are not going to forget how involved we were in the beginning when this whole thing started, they're also not going to forget that they paid an addendum or whatever on a car. And they had to buy it at that moment in time because that's what they needed to do. As we've seen these, you know, everybody's like, you know, pounding their chest on how records and all these things, but also the negative reviews are going through the roof as well. You know, and
and I don't think that just ends when, like you say, they're not going to forget now. They're not going to forget in 3 to 5 years either. When
that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, we have to do it too, because that's, you know, supply and demand 101, but we got to be real careful with that.
It's definitely a fine line, because, you know, the way I look at it, it's definitely a fine line, but I look at it like, hey, I'm going to have to clean up this mess. So how much of a mess do I actually want to create? And am I able to clean it up on the backside of it? So you could charge a little bit more now if you have an exit plan on the other side as well. So if you're saying, okay, well, I know that at some point they're going to come in and they're going to want to trade this car in, you know, how do I approach that? Am I ready for that part of it? Am I going to discount the second car even more to compensate for that? So, you know, before you bury somebody to the point where they're never going to be able to get out of it, you got to think twice and think of the end result, right? I always say that somebody comes in with a problem. I'm not here to create another problem for you. I'm here to solve that problem. And I got to look at it like solving the problem today and tomorrow. I got to understand the backside of that. So there's a fine line. People are overspending, you know, but you know, you just can't get reckless. You know, there's you know, some products out there that are new products like the Corvette and those that, you know, people can charge, you know, 20, 30,000 over, but at some point, you know, you're going to have an issue. And on the Corvette, we're like the third largest Corvette dealer in the nation, and we charge MSRP. We're not even addendum those cars. I mean, we're staying true and we're sticking to that. You know, we're picking it up in volume, and we've said it from day one. We're just going to be at MSRP on those vehicles.
You guys don't charge. So, okay, I have a question about that. Are you guys buried in customers wanting to buy? Well, I ran into this at work the other day. Like, we have some of our competitors don't charge any kind of adjustment on theirs, and their wait lists are ridiculous because everybody's going to them thinking that they're going to be able to get a vehicle right away without
certain cars warrant it. So we're right now we're on a 2-year waiting list on the Corvette, but we have been since it came out. So that's not anything new to us.
Right.
I think that if we charged, you know, 5,000 or 7,000 over MSRP, I think it would have been fine. I don't think we would have lost any customers based on that. But we were just not going to pick and choose of who we did it for and not, you know, so we just kept that, you know, kind of across the board. And, you know, for that market, you know, the Corvette market's going to be there forever. And we want to retain that business. We want those people to understand that, hey, you know, we're still going to stay true to that part of it. I mean, we could have went 5,000 or 7,000 over, and I don't think we would have created, you know, too much chaos. But you know what, we just decided to keep it the way it was. We've always been that way with the Corvettes. You know, there's, you know, the other side of it is the used cars. You know, we're obviously profitable on the used cars, but it just depends on what we're buying them for, right? If we can buy them right and we're still selling them at market value, I'm okay with that. You know, it's market value, and people understand that, hey, they are paying a little bit more for those cars, but we're not, you know, there's some people with Escalades charging 20,000 over sticker, 15,000 over sticker. I mean, we're still at MSRP on those. I mean, we're not getting to that point. And again, I don't want to clean up that mess later. I don't want to be the one responsible to somebody coming back and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I can't get you out of this. You're 18,000 upside down. They're gonna be like, well, you did it.
Right, exactly.
Right.
I mean, like,
you created this, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line.
And they're going to be angry all over again.
There's a fine line. Like, I don't mind, you know, obviously we're there to be profitable. We're there, you know, we're not there to lose money. And now with volume being down, we're picking up a little bit extra gross on cars. So I'm not going to say we're not, you know, but we're just very cautious about what we're doing.
Yeah, you have to have a strategy too, and not to sound what's the word? Like, you know,
it's still building that foundation.
Yeah,
it's still
exactly.
building that, you know, that trust, and we're still building that, right? It is the opposite of rebates. It's the complete opposite, right? And we're at the point now we're opposite of pull ahead, right? So the consumer, you know, you had a point where you can get out of your car 6 months early. Now we're extending your car 6 months later, right? You had 4,000 in rebate. Now you have a 2,000 adjustment. So, I mean, there's, you know, market's going to adjust eventually, but it literally flip-flopped. I mean, we have more people than cars. I mean, just the way it is. And I'll sum this up really easy for you. And this is the strategy that we kind of went around. And we felt like this was you know, the right way of looking at things. And my boy, Frank Creniti, credit him, because he came up with the actual idea, and the term is the whole world became one big boutique, right? Everything is a boutique. Anything you go buy is like buying a Louis Vuitton. Anything you buy is like buying a Chanel. You're like, you have two of those products. You have one of, right? And people are willing to pay a little extra for that one of. People are willing to pay a little extra for, you know, a Chanel purse, because they understand that the value of it is they're getting exceptional a service by it. So we have to step up our game and say, okay, yes, we are charging a little bit more on these cars. We are, you know, not giving you incentives, but you're getting a better experience. You're still getting us here. We're still here to serve you. And, you know, it just became a boutique. I mean, like Rolex, right? Look at Rolex. What are they doing? Right? I mean, you used to get
So
10% off. Now you're like, you can't even get one for 2 years. That's what it's became. Everything you're doing now is a boutique shopping, like anything. So it's really a good way to approach things and look at it. So if you are charging a premium, you have to offer something with it.
Right. So going back to, you said something right now, I caught my ear. You talked about cleaning up and you know, especially my mind goes to as a salesperson, especially you, because you're like one of the busiest salespeople in the business, right? During COVID, during the downtime, did you take that time to kind of reset and look at your processes and, you know, figure out ways to kind of clean things up? Or were things happening so fast that you were just like kind of moving with the pace of things?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had to look at our process and say, okay, you know, what changes do we need to make? I mean, we had a well-oiled machine that was just pumping, right? And it was just running itself at that point. And then all of a sudden somebody hit the emergency brake, and you're just like, whoa, I got to pivot here. I got to figure out, you know, now we got to set up outside. Now we can't, do the things we used to do with customers. Now, you know, I'm a hugger. I hug all my customers. I couldn't hug my customers. And that, even something so small that you think of, you know, people come in, you're like, oh my God. And people are afraid, right? Nobody wanted to even come near you. You're wearing a mask, gloves. You're like, Jesus, what's happening here? So it was an adjustment. It's a mindset adjustment. People left the industry. right? People quit, people are gone. They were just like, I can't do this. So yeah, we did make some process changes, but I didn't want to, I didn't want to say, okay, well, business is gone, business is done. I knew, and I called this way before, and I had said it so many times, that the backside of something like this is it's going to be amazing for everybody. It's going to be profitable. I mean, the backside of any downturn like this, I said, we're going to build superstars. And we did. And there were so many salespeople that came out of this as superstars that never thought they would hit levels they hit because of the way things changed, right? You weren't getting people shopping you as much. They were looking for relationship people. They didn't want to go to 10 different dealerships anymore. They were just like, I know this person. I trust this person. I'm not trying to walk into 4 dealers. So it minimized people's, shopping you with other dealerships. So a lot of these guys that were doing good and girls that were doing good, they actually came out of it better than they ever did. And yourself, Herb, like, people are more profitable today than they've ever been.
Yeah.
And it's still COVID, right? So, if you look at it in a positive view, make those little process changes. And we did, we adjusted to what the needs were for our clients. And we adjusted that way. And, I think they appreciated it.
Yeah. So I've said this multiple times on the show, and I've had this conversation with multiple decision makers that I consult with. I was like, dude, one of the positive things about COVID is the acceleration of progress that it created, right? Because I feel like decision makers today are more open to be like, okay, let's try that. Let's do this. Let's check this thing out. Just look at what happened with digital retailing. All of a sudden, people that were so resistant to that overnight were like, yep, we need it. We got to do it. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And I think that mind shift is going to pay dividends 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, because we're more willing to experiment. But that being said, do you think that I feel like we're going into this place where we're like riding high, and we feel like things are not going to go back to the way they were, and they're most definitely going to go back to the way they were in the way of inventory surpluses, rebates,
Right.
supply and demand kind of on an unequal footing.
Well, we just had this discussion at work the other day about the salespeople that we've hired during COVID and how they have no clue.
Right.
Like, this is all they've known. And so they don't know how to work hard for their money.
Well, so and that's my point,
Agreed.
right? Like, do you think that we're in a dangerous place where we're like, oh, this is going to be how it's going to be forever?
Yeah, some people do. Some people think that. I totally agree with you. It's going to stabilize at some point. The whole world can't have this boutique mentality forever, right? I mean, you can't. It's not going to be that way. Now, will it ever go back to the point pre-COVID, that far in advance? I don't know. Businesses are going to start changing. Now they're realizing, manufacturers like, okay, well, we could be profitable and not build as many cars, not hire as many employees.
Yeah, but really,
but what is the
whole point of
ramification of that?
Yeah.
Right? Well, I mean, why are people? Let me tell you something. Why are people going back to offices, right? Even though they were actually doing okay at home, because of the effect that it had on other businesses. Because even though people can work at home, and GM said, okay, well, everybody can work at home, or just as productive, but what is that causing? What ripple effect are you causing by doing that, right? Then people went down to one car. Then you only need gas for one car. Then you're not spending money at restaurants. Then you're not on the roads. Then now you're taking everything away. So it's a ripple effect. Eventually, everybody's going to get back to work. Everybody's got to go back to offices. Eventually, somehow, some way, they're going to do that. It doesn't make sense for everybody just to stay at home. And now they're realizing that the longer they stay at home, the less productive people are becoming, the more lazy they're becoming. They're not producing as high as they were before. But it's definitely coming back to the way it was. I mean, manufacturers are going to be like, hey, we need to build, X amount of cars, and we need to keep people working. So it's just going to take one manufacturer to come out and say, well, here's a $5,000 rebate. Come buy our car. I know. And what do you think is going to happen? Yeah. Right? Everybody's going to follow. It's not, imagine Ford comes out and says, we're giving $5,000 off on every car we have. And then GM's going to be like, oh, no, we're not doing that. Well, what do you, it's not going to, it's going to get back to that point at some point. Could be a couple years though before you see that.
Yeah, but that's that, and that I feel like that. I think like, and it's not. I know it's not the case for all manufacturers, but some of the stuff that I've read is there's cars waiting, like they're built, they're ready to go,
Oh yeah.
and as soon
Enough.
as they dump those into the market, what you're going to have to create incentives and things of that nature to get those out.
The used car market's going to take the biggest hit.
Yeah.
The used car market's going to take the biggest hit. And a lot of a lot of people don't understand that when they build these new cars, these rental companies are the ones that eat them up first. So, you got like all these Enterprise and Avis and all these companies, they actually get the first batch from these manufacturers. That's their biggest client. It's really not the dealers.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, we have to fulfill these orders for, these companies. That's why rental cars are so expensive. They can't get cars right now. So once that gets filled and then the dealerships get filled, this used car market is just going to be pumped because all those rental cars are going to be pumped into the used car market, the ones that they currently have. Then you're going to see this downturn. You're going to see the numbers coming down on these used cars. That's the one that's going to take the biggest hit initially. There's still a lot of people right now in leased vehicles that are overextended on their contract. They've made it easier to extend your lease now. Basically, you had to call in and get an exception. Now they're just like, just keep making your payment and we'll call you when we need it back. It's crazy, but they're giving up to a year, even more in some cases, extensions. So all of those people are still at a standstill. So I can assure you all of next year is going to be just trying to fill all the business that we should have had today. We're going to have that compounded with the business that's supposed to happen in next year. People's leases coming up at that point. So next year, I guarantee you is going to be extremely, extremely busy with new cars because a lot of those people are still holding on to their leases. So I should have had them out in October. They're not going to be out till let's say April or May. And then all the people that I should have had out in April and May are also going to be coming in.
Right.
And, so you're going to have this big flow. It's going to boom on the other side of this. We just have to be ready for it. And I'm putting processes in place now. So when that does happen, we're taking a ridiculous amount of orders. So when those cars come in, I'm going to have to fulfill those. So
right.
It's going to be crazy next year, but it's going to take probably, I would say, all of next year before we actually have inventory sitting on the lot.
I was just going to ask you that. You think it'll be sometime next year before we?
Yeah, I have. So if I just look at me personally, right, and it's a good gauge to kind of look at it. I have right now probably 6 months of orders that are ready. Just so by time, if you ordered a car for me today, I'm depending on the vehicle, we're 4 to 6 months out. So if your car is not going to come in for 6 months, right? So that whole 6 months, I'm not going to have cars. So there goes, we're till May, right? And then if I continue to do that for the next 3 months, which I'm gonna, so then if you're still ordering a car in January, and I'm telling you 6 to 8 months, I'm putting August.
Yeah, wow, dude.
So you got to think all of those cars that you're ordering are sold. They're all pre-sold. So until we actually get an overamount, so if production kind of ramps up a little bit, it'll shorten that time frame. But I'm guessing it won't be till end of summer by the time you walk in and you can pick and choose what you want, and maybe later if they don't ramp up production. GM said they're going to ramp up production by the first quarter. They said they're going from 40% to 70%. If that happens, I mean things will move a little faster. But who knows?
Yeah, dude.
But I'm still projecting all of next year.
Yeah. So you said something right now. You said you're putting processes in place. Is that you as Ali Reda, the superstar, or is it like the dealership as a whole? Because
the dealerships are adjusting.
The majority, to what Charity talked about right now, like the majority of salespeople are on this cloud of, oh yeah, it's awesome, and they're not thinking about what's going to happen here in the next few months.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's going to happen is like the people coming in, like Charity said, that they're coming in now and they're making, 5,000-6,000 grosses on these cars, and they're going to go back to making like 600-700 gross, 800 gross. They're going to be like, this job is not worth it. So, now they're flying high and they understand it, and they're just like, oh wow, okay, we're making really good money. But these
I
dealerships
had
are
one
gonna
of
have to
my
realize
sales
it.
guys the other day tell me that he didn't sign up to get yelled at by customers, and I was like, "Oh, honey, you
Yeah.
are in the wrong business."
I mean, what industry don't you get yelled at? I mean, what the heck? I mean, you could be on the other end of Comcast line and people are screaming at you, and you're getting paid $12 an hour. I mean, so no matter what, you're going to get screamed at. But you got to handle that. But yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. With a lot of these new people that are coming in. But for me, I did put new processes. I historically hated ordering cars because it just took too much time. I hated dealer trades because it took too much time. So I hated pushing anything forward. I'd like to do it now and get it done. So what's happening in our business is all salespeople is we normally deal with the customer for, let's say, one day. Usually for me, it's one day. Average salesperson, maybe 3 days or a week. You're dealing with the person. Now I'm dealing with the person for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, dude.
So,
Wow.
And it's just like realtors, right? Realtors deal with people for, one person for 3 to 6 months, but they don't have a huge pipeline. So now I'm dealing with people for 3 to 6 months, but I have hundreds of people at the same time. So we're like bottlenecked because I have all the people waiting for cars calling me, is my car in, is my car in, is my car in. I have people that today's business, I have people asking me, hey, my lease is up in 3 months. What should I do? We're trying to reach out to people 6 months out so we can order their cars now. So it's been a process shift because it's taken a lot longer to deal with one person than it should have. I should have been done with them in one day. They should have been gone driving and done. Now,
I think that's
it's bottlenecked.
That's really important because you're consciously aware of the fact that that's what's going on, and I don't think the majority of sales associates see it that way. They're so used to dealing with a customer for a couple of days and then moving past them. And right now, what I see is that they'll take an order and then we don't have contact with the customer for a month.
It's hard. It's hard. If you have, you're right. You're so right, Charity. First thing, it's awareness. Awareness is the biggest deal. If you're not aware of what's happening in your business, then there's a problem. If you don't know your process, there's a problem. You need to figure that out first. So awareness is probably the biggest takeaway that I can ever tell a salesperson: to be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what's happening, understand it so you can then fix it, right? So you know where you're going. And a lot of people, you're right, they're oblivious to it. They're just like, oh, they're not thinking of what's going to happen today, tomorrow, and in the future. But, for me, I hated ordering because it took so long, right? And I'm like, oh, you want to order a car, man? For Corvettes, we because our Corvettes were always like that, right? From the time this new one came out, and it was like 2 years, I'm like, oh, I hated ordering. So I put it on one of my assistants. I'm like, listen, you're going to handle all those orders. People come in, you take the order, and then, I give her a little bonus for when those cars actually come in. I'm like, handle the whole thing, organize it. And then when that car comes in and gets delivered, I'm going to pay you extra just for handling this whole thing. So she loved it because it gave her some extra income. But now I have to do it with everything. So now, oh my God, how do I get out of this? So I had to put new process in place. Somebody comes in and I'm used to just giving them a car. Now I'm like, okay, you got to order a car. Here's what's going to take 3 to 4 months. So we've had to shift from selling cars to doing that. And now I'm like, I think I got like 300 orders in for cars. And I'm like, so now I have those people calling me, did my car come in? Did my car come in? Did my car come in? And even if you tell them 3 to 6 months, they want answers and they want to stay in the loop. And then I have people call me for billing issues. And then I have people call me for service. Then I have people call me, for future business. So we've been overloaded with work, and a lot of it is not panning out today, but it will. Like I said, the flip side of this is you gotta plant the seed. No matter what, you got to plant the seed now, and you reap the benefits later. But it's challenging.
Create the service experience that makes them come back.
Oh, that has to stay there, right? They don't care that I have 300 orders. They're one person. Yeah. They are one person. So they're thinking, okay, why is he not calling me back? Why, I need to know where my order is. And they're not like, oh, okay, he's just overly busy and there's 300 orders. I'm one of 300. They're one of one. That's it. So
in their mind,
they're one of one. Nothing else matters. I mean, you can't tell them that. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm overly busy, but they just want answers. It's okay. They understand you're busy, but they just want answers, and that's been logistically tough too. Because I had to make sure that everybody's doing their job to make sure things flow very good. And the other thing is, I don't know if you know her, but I have a salesperson that works for me. His name is Carlos, right? So I have him doing the same thing. So I got him, and I got to organize his stuff on top of that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. But it's been
So
fun.
I think you're the best person to ask this question, just because what you just mentioned. I mean, it's just the sheer volume of customers that you deal with. But have you noticed that customers' mind shift has kind of changed a little bit, like their mindset? Excuse me. Like, would you say that they're more on the side of, I'm going to wait till the car comes in, or they're more on the side of, well, there's no new cars, we don't know when we're going to have new cars, and I'm just going to buy whatever I can get my hands on now? Like,
It's been a little mixture. So people that actually pay attention to what's happening in the world are a little bit more receptive to saying, okay, I understand that we're in a crisis. I understand that we're in a pandemic, and we're okay waiting. Just guide us and let us know what we should do. So now they're looking to us more as an advisor than ever, right? They're coming in, they don't know the answers. So together you got to figure out that person's needs and figure it out from there. But most people are understanding now that there's no vehicles. But this just happened just in the last couple months. What we got to retrain people on is the fact that they're coming out of $300 leases, and that's just not around anymore. So they have to understand that part of it, and you have to explain to them why their payment went from $300 to $450. Or you tell them, okay, or order a car in 6 months, things will adjust a little bit. Hopefully we'll get better pricing by that time. And as long as you give them those 2, 3, 4 options, or say, here's a used vehicle we can get in your price range. It's not as nice as the one you have now, maybe, but we can do this interim. And then in a year from now, we can kind of trade it in when leasing gets a little more aggressive. I think if you give them 3, 4 options and they understand, okay, educate them a little bit on what's happening. I haven't had any kickback. I haven't had any friction from them in that point. But just telling them, I don't have nothing for you. The price is $600 a month, and that's it. It just kind of turns them off.
But what do you do with those customers? And do you put them on some sort of, the ones that are like, no, man, I'm going to wait because I want a new car. I don't want a used car or whatever. Do you put them on some sort of follow-up? Do you what's your process with those folks?
Yeah, those are the ones that I actually order cars for. Those are the ones that I'm like, okay, all right. So, I know we don't have anything now, so let's be proactive. Let me place an order for you for a vehicle. We'll figure out what car we think is going to fit that budget and their needs, and then we'll order it. And it's going to take 6 months. I think leasing will adjust in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
A couple of things happen. And we're extending their lease. So let's just assume that in 6 months from now it comes in and it's too expensive. I need the car anyways. So I'm not, on my side of it, fine. You don't take the car, I have no issues with that. But, we need the car anyhow, and then we'll extend your lease again if that doesn't work. But at least we have a plan in place that if you come in 6 months and the pricing is decent and you want to make a move and you have nothing, then you got to wait another 4 months or something. So I'm just extending and placing orders now. And then that gives a customer something kind of tangible to hold on to say, okay, well, I have a plan. I'm in good hands. I have a car coming in 6 months.
It takes that customer out of the market.
That's what I was going to say. It takes them out of the market. They're not now they're not out there shopping. Now they're not worried about it. Now they're not stressed, because most of them are like, first thing they come in and they're like panicking because they feel like the bank is going to take their car and they have no options. They're like, well, what if they pick up my car and I don't have an option? I'm like, no. We have extensions. As long as you're making your payment, you're good. So it's just explaining, sitting down, taking the time to explain it to people, and they feel comfortable after that.
But do you think that there's an opportunity, and I don't know, maybe we've missed the window, but do you think there was an opportunity to offer these customers some sort of used car leasing for like a year, drive this car, you make a little bit of money, and then when the inventory comes in, you flip them into a new car? Because what about those customers that buy now and then their car comes in, they have buyer's remorse or whatever, who knows how impacted their life is because of the situation, and now you were in a bad spot.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust Foureyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try Foureyes for free, visit foureyes.io/dealertalk. That's foureyes.io/dealertalk.
Yeah, we did that. We looked at that. I had a couple companies come in at used car, leasing programs it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. Some of the programs are, the rates are kind of high in these used cars. Once you factored in an extended warranty, most people don't want to lease a car and then don't have a warranty. I mean, that kind of defeated the purpose of leasing in the first place. So once you factored in the warranty and the rates and everything, it wasn't as attractive as you would assume it would be. And then there was only a couple cars that actually worked out with. So, at this point, it was probably better for us to actually just order them something and keep them in their current lease. That made the most sense because that was the best priced vehicle that was out there. If you leased a car 2-3 years ago, you weren't getting a better price than that.
Mm-hmm.
So most of them are just like, okay, well, as long as I can keep my car, I'm fine. Nobody's being really picky about, I'm sick of this car, I want out of it. They're just like happy to stay in it. Again, it is just options. It's just giving them those 3-4 options, and then together you guys decide what's best.
Yeah. Charity, what about you? I mean, when it comes to the customers, what are you seeing on your end? Do you see that the customers are more willing to transact now regardless, or they're more hesitant and they're more on the side of?
I think it's a mixed bag. It depends. When you were talking, the thing that I was thinking about is everybody's reading that their used car is worth so much money right now. And that's probably one of the biggest things we run into is, like, we had somebody who was trying to sell their Excursion for $100,000. And you're like, listen, I know you're reading the news.
Yeah, unrealistic.
Like, reasonable here, people.
Well, what year was it? How many miles? Like, all those things go into, depends on what it was, right?
We're running into that now.
That's one or something. It was like,
that's one of the new things. Yeah, that's one of the new things that I've been dealing with recently, because Carvana and Vroom and these companies started pushing out, all these offers to people, and they were saying, okay, well, the West Coast was bringing in more money. They have the ability to send that car to the West Coast, right? It had nothing to do with our area. And some people early on sold their car and then come in and try to get a car. And I'm like, no, there is no cars. You can't just buy a car. They went out and sold it. And I'm like, well, what did you make? Oh, $4,000 or $5,000. Okay. Just so you know, here's a used car that you're going to buy and you're paying $4,000 or $5,000 more for that. You didn't do anything. You just kind of washed it. And everybody in the world became a car salesman, right? Everybody became a bad car salesman at that. So they were just like, everybody was selling, and then they come into me like, well, I heard I can make this much on my car. I'm like, okay, maybe we can. Let's take a look at it. I says, I'll buy it off you. You don't have to go through the mess of buying it and registering it and getting a title. I just do it for you here. So then we started offering them some incentive, if they wanted that. And I'm like, but listen, the extra $2,000 you're making today, you are paying it extra on this car. So just be aware of that. Again, I'm just very transparent and let them know that that's what's happening. And some people are like, oh, well, that's not worth it. And I'm like, no, it's not. So you have to look at each individual person and decide, is it worth it or not worth it? This past 2 months, I've been like the wholesale guru. I mean, I've been buying more cars than selling cars because we have no inventory. So then I went out there and I'm like, okay, I put the word out there that, hey, I need cars. I'll buy your car. We'll buy your vehicle. If you have an extra car, a lot of people come in with, spouses, and I had 2-3 cars in a household. And I'm like, if you don't think you're going to use that car for the next year and it's just parked and you guys can go on one car, well, now is the time to sell it. And then we can get you a car in a year from now if you don't need it. Those are the ones that benefited. Those are the ones that say, okay, well, they made a little bit of money. You downsized one car, but you're going to have to fill that spot at some point. But I've been out there, man. I put the word out there. Last month, I bought 36 cars.
Whoa.
Yeah. I've been putting it out there. So I think I found a new niche. I think I'm like, you know what? I might just start doing that. So it's funny because it's very lucrative too. So I'm buying them off of wholesale. I'm buying them off of, I started going to swap a lease, and I'm like, oh, you want to get out of your lease? Hey, we'll buy your car. Just bring it up to the dealership. And I'm looking up, and we're just reaching out to people. And for us, we get paid on buying the car. Just, we get paid either a flat 300 or your normal percentage if you were over. So that I was doing better on that than selling cars. We didn't have any cars to sell. So I'm like, I got to find a way. So now I'm going to shift a little bit of my business to fit that.
And that goes back to Herb's point about like testing things out and trying new things. Like, we have this perfect opportunity to try buying vehicles in other avenues.
I hit that ground running, and I have so many other just other dealers are like, hey, we have a couple extra cars. You guys want them? we're buying them. I'm wholesaling cars. Literally about 6 in one day. I mean, it's just been,
dude.
and I've been buying a lot of high-end cars that we weren't really looking at before. So I sent out a picture on Facebook the other day. I had literally 2 G-Wagons, a Rolls Royce, a Range Rover, and these high-end cars people are spending on. And I have the clients that want them.
To buy them.
So a lot of times I'm buying a car that's already pre-sold, but I'm just buying them up. And then some of those high-end G-Wagons and those, I'm wholesaling them out to like Miami and California, and we're still profitable because we're buying them for a decent price here and selling them there. So we pivoted, man. I'm telling you, we've made some changes and really haven't felt the pinch yet.
Yeah, no, I think that well, see, that one's is an interesting one. I had the people from VinQ on the show earlier in the season, and we were talking about that. And I'm of the philosophy that a dealership should buy every single car that they can get their hands on. Yep. Period. If you buy every single car that you can get your hands on, whether you're making $500 or $5,000,
right,
you're going to win more. You have more opportunities.
Yep.
And a lot of dealers are selective when it comes to that. They're like, well, no, I only want to buy the cars that I can flip and I can, make money on, and I'm going to be super selective. And that strategy does not pay. But on the other end, most dealers are also not equipped because they don't have a buying center or buying team.
Right.
They rely on their sales force to buy cars. And I don't know. I don't think that's the way to do it.
It's not.
Or they just have their sales associates handling the purchases, the acquisition.
We are buying every single car that comes in. I mean, we're buying we're buying every lease vehicle that's being returned. We're buying like anything. Either some of them are overpriced, but we're buying them anyways because we need them. If we had an over amount, we can put them on Smart Auction. We're still profitable on that because people are buying them up like crazy. But I've reached out to a lot of my colleagues that work at other dealerships, and I'm like, hey, are you guys have any problems, with trade-ins? And some of them are like, yeah, we can't get these trade-ins because the dealer's not putting enough money. I'm like, send them to me. I'll buy every single car. And I got guys at Chrysler, I got guys at Nissan, I got guys at all these other dealerships. They're like, hey, or Lincoln, they're all like, go see Ali, he'll buy this car for you. I bought in those cars and they could still get the sale. I'm like, I'm not going to mess with your customer on the sale of the car. Just bring me the car. I'll buy the car. And then you guys sell them a car over there. Because, I mean, I'm not trying to sell them a car. I just want theirs. And that's how I've been doing it. And people have been calling me like crazy. And I'm telling you, BMWs, Range Rovers, people are just texting me all the time. Hey, I heard you're buying cars. Here's what I have. And then, and I even made a flyer that I passed out where you can just scan a QR code and send me your information on the car that you want to trade in. So I mean, it's been crazy, but I'm telling you, I might be like the wholesale buyer king from now on. I don't know. I might shift. There's no CSI, there's no customer, there's no application for credit. There's no nothing. It's just like boom, boom, you're done. I'm like, what? This is so easy. I'm done. Yeah. I'm shifting.
That's awesome. So we're almost at that time, but there's 2 more questions I want to ask you.
Yeah.
The first one has to do with advertisement and promoting yourself. Like one of my biggest takeaways from our first conversation is you were pretty big on self-promotion, but in your community, and you were not a fan. I don't know if that's changed, if your philosophy's changed, but you're not a fan of social media in the way of, it does nothing for you to have 1 million views because you don't have 1 million people in your backyard that you can sell cars to.
Right.
So, and I totally agree with that. Like that was a mind shift for me. During this situation, have you done anything different with the Ali Reda brand to promote yourself? Is it been more personal connection because at this point your book of business is just massive, or like what have you done marketing wise to promote yourself, promote your services? Like talk to us a little bit about that.
Very good question, man. You definitely got to stay relative, right? I mean, everybody does kind of know me in the community now, but you still got to stay fresh. You still got to stay out there. And I agree with you. I mean, I could be popular on Facebook, but I mean, if it's not local, what does that do for me? I mean, it does nothing. So, advertising on social media is okay, but you got to keep it local and you got to keep it, you got to have a focal point on that. You're not just blasting, your name, come see me buy a car. It has to be something a little more to that. A storyline. So, recently, this past week, actually, this week and last week, we have this mobile Cinnabon truck that just that parks at a certain location, and you can pull up to it. And Cinnabon is starting to put these mobile trucks out there. It's like a food truck, right? And a lot of places are starting to put them out there. So I called a guy because it's a friend of mine that owns it. I'm like, hey, what if I want to rent that truck and send it somewhere? Can you do that? He goes, yeah, for sure. I'm like, all right, here's what I want you to do is I want to set something up with the Dearborn Police Department. And I want to put that truck outside of the police department and just have them come out and enjoy it on us. So, and I called up one of the lieutenants. It's a good friend of mine. And I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to send a Cinnabon truck there. What is the scheduling like? And he's like, well, if you want to get everybody, you got to come Monday morning, Monday night, Wednesday morning, Wednesday night. Then you cover everybody's because they have different shifts. And I'm like, perfect. So I had the Cinnabon truck go to the police station. They sent out a mass email. Hey, Ali Reda, Les Stanford is going to sponsor this truck, and he's going to park outside for 3-4 hours, and you guys can come out and enjoy it. So, I went out there. I gave it to the police department. We did that for those 2 Monday and Wednesday, and it was. I can't tell you the outpour from those officers and the civilians that worked at the court and people in the office, and they just were appreciative because I didn't really realize how bad they actually have it right now. And they're just like, dude, nobody even thinks about us anymore. Nobody cares about it. I'm like, what do you mean? Dude, you have to protecting us every day. He says that people just don't like us. And I was like blown away by that. But we had that truck out there for 4 hours, and then we had him back in the evening, and I was there. Remember we talked about being present where you advertise. So I could have just been like, here's a Cinnabon truck, go there and don't worry about it, just from Ali and touch this small group. No, we actually put it on Facebook. That's how you advertise. When I say advertise something local, and we said, here's what we're doing to give back. You guys should try this too, right? We'll put it out there for other people to try, different avenues of doing things. And man, I got so many calls and emails and, text messages, and people came in and officers are coming to my office. Hey man, thank you so much for thinking of us. We really appreciated that. And then, and that was such a good thing to do. A friend of mine owns a realtor office down the street at Keller Williams. He has 150 agents. I'm like, this is awesome, dude. Hey, I'm sending this truck to you guys. This happened yesterday, by the way. I'm like, I'm sending this truck to your office. When is your best time to send it? He goes, we have Friday morning meetings at 10 to 11. I go, that truck will be there 11 o'clock. And yesterday I had it there, and all the agents come out. And guess what? These are prospects, right? These are, one, you're giving back. Two, you have agents that are, one, they're working, they're spending money. They like to have nice cars. So now you're networking with that group of people, and that's community engagement. That's kind of giving back. And I was there, and I actually took the owner with me. I'm like, hey, you got to come to this one because, let's just mingle. We sat there for 2 hours at that agency. Wow. Just mingling, right? People come out, at this point, everybody's hugging you. They're taking pictures, selfies. A couple of them did live video with me on their Facebook. So, it's getting yourself out there and networking, which just small ideas like that. There's food trucks everywhere. So if you have a food truck in your area, start with the police department. I got the fire department coming up next. And then, who knows where it goes from there. And the guy was happy because he already got 2 jobs from it.
Yeah, right.
Because he's like, oh, I'm going to send it somewhere, and I want to send it somewhere. So I put him onto something. I'm like, you owe me a cut. He's going to be busy.
You know what I really like about that, dude, is that inadvertently you create business without being all about me. Hey, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
You know
just
what I mean?
Message. It's just a strong message.
And I think that's always a better strategy. Pulling customers in is always better than pushing your agenda on your prospects.
Yeah, none of it was like, come buy a car for me. It was literally just my name was enough to do that. I gave them a flyer with that QR code where they can scan and see what their car's worth. I just kind of set that out there. So if they wanted to pick that up, they could, but just small things like that. But now you could post that on Facebook. Now you can say, hey, here's what we're doing. Now, it's contagious. Other people are going to be like, oh, and then somebody might mess around and ask you about a car, and then that's your point.
Yeah. So cool.
Well, I think that it creates there's a moral factor to it, like a trust factor that creates long-term customer base instead of, like, to your point, if you're just pushing everything onto people and you're like, look at us, we're so great. But if you're just going out there and feeding
you're
people,
just doing it in
care of people, they trust you.
The problem we have, Charity, a lot of these salespeople will try something, get nothing out of it, and then say it was an epic fail, and it's not.
Right.
It's not a fail. I mean, you gotta. It's not a overnight sensation. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, I might have to do that 3 times, 4 times, 5 times before I actually get some kind of recognition or some kind of reciprocated sale from it. So, but my mindset is not to go
But
there.
then it goes back to what's the motivation, right? If somebody's just doing it because they want sales out of it, then you're
that's what a salesperson initially thinks. That's what they think. They think that I'm going to go to this, I'm going to go to a charity event and I'm going to go there and there's going to be 2,000 people, but I should sell 5 cars. And you come out of there and you got nothing. And then they're like, oh, well, that was a waste of time. Not thinking, okay, let me just go there and make 5 friends and then see where those 5 friends lead to another 20 friends next time. And then next time I might be on stage talking. And by the 4th time, everybody's coming to me, asking me about cars. You know, I'm not mentioning anything. That's how it works, but it takes years. I mean, it's again, we plant the seed today to reap the benefits later. I mean, you're not going to get it in one visit.
Right.
No instant gratification, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, with those types of strategies, and never is. I mean, if you're looking for that instant sale, then do a mailer or do something that's a little bit more, you know, and
non-relationship,
1 or 2 out of
non-relationship based.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, all right. So, my next question is, so you talked about in the first episode that we did together, you talked about kind of where you were mentally back in 2008. Right. And you were like, dude, people are leaving the industry. Do I stay? You know what I mean? And you've talked about it today. You've kind of alluded to some of that same mindset of, you know, things are going to be better after like things are going to boom after this whole thing passes or whatever. What would you say to salespeople that are listening in, that are tuning in, that are maybe considering leaving the industry, or maybe they're in a situation where they had that boom in COVID and now things are getting back to reality and they're getting punched in the gut? What would be your message to those folks?
I mean, I agree with that, man. I went through it in 2008, 2009. A lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends bailed on the industry. They were just like, this industry is dead. You know, they don't need dealerships. People are not buying cars. And then whoever stuck through it at that time came out a superstar on the other side. It was just, you know, you got to be patient, right? In any industry that you walk into, in any job you walk into, you're just not going to know it immediately. I mean, you have to be patient. You have to allow things to develop, but you got to have the mindset like, you know, okay, I'm going to go in this dealership, get a job, and I got to think of it as a career, not just a job. So if I think of it as a career, then the longevity of it is it'll develop over time. We talked about planting seeds a couple of times today. I mean, that's exactly what you're doing. I encourage people to find the right home initially, and then say, okay, this is where I can build my business. This is where I can build, you know, my relationship with my community. This is where I want to be, and then work on that. But you can't just bail, and the grass is not greener on the other side every single time. Just because your manager left, you want to follow him, and another person, you hate your manager, so you want to quit. I mean, you're always going to have problems in any workplace. I mean, dealerships are known for that, right? We're going to have issues. You're going to have a lot of people that you're associate with. So, you know, I just put your head down and run, you know, build your own business. It really doesn't matter to me what the dealership does at this point. It does not matter who they hire, who's the manager, what happens. None of that matters to me anymore, because I've built a business that I'm not reliant on that. And that's the whole idea of these young people getting in there and getting involved in the community and build your own book of business. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your business that you built. I have a business inside of a business. I mean, how you want to look at that. And, you know, the other side of this, Herb, you guys are gonna hear next year. You're gonna hear some superstar names that you've never heard of before. You're gonna hear some people breaking records. Eventually, you know, my record is gonna be broken. It's just because of that's the track that we're heading towards. I mean, there's going to be a lot of compounded business into 1 year or 2 years. I mean, we're going to be busy. So I would say now is the time to plan for that. And that way you can handle it. And, you know, I encourage people, we're getting more and more professionals entering our industry than we ever have. I think they're seeing that this is actually a pretty good career. And, you know, we're wiping away a lot of that stigma. that we had, in the 70s and 80s. I think that people are looking up to us as professionals now, and not just, a salesperson trying to sell a car. Things are going to shift a little bit. So
right on.
I stick to it.
Yeah, no,
There's so much life to this business.
Yeah, dude, I love that message is coming from you, because I think you're right on point. I think this business is becoming more and more complex. It's becoming more and more you're required more and more to have certain skill sets in order to succeed in this business.
I wish at some point, I mean, I've been saying it for so long, that we can actually just change the salesperson name to a sales advisor, right? Or a car advisor, because we are more of that. I mean, we're selling $100,000 products, $200,000 products. We're solving issues. We have financing involved. I mean, there's so much more involved than just saying I want to buy that car and leave. There's a lot more involved in the process. So, if we adopt that advisor role, just like your financial advisor, just like your, you insurance people you're relying on. So we want people to rely on us, saying that we're making the best decision for you as a consumer. And, I think once we adopt that role a little bit more, it just carries a more respected role with clients.
Yeah, I totally agree, dude. Hey, man, are we ever going to see Ali Reda Chevrolet or Ali Reda Ford or Ali Reda GM? Like, what's up?
It could be, man. It could at some point. It's not my desire right now. I had an opportunity before, but it just didn't make sense. One, I have a dealership inside of a dealership without worrying about overhead, without worrying about anything else. Financially, I'm probably better off than trying to start that all over again. But who knows? At some point, I think now for the near future, I talked a little bit about Carlos, my sales associate that works for me now. My plan right now is I got another 1 or 2 people coming on board. I was getting ready to bring them on board. Then we had this, inventory issue. So I just pushed it to the beginning of the year. So I can focus on making sure we're ready to go. But I think I'm going to get 1 or 2 more sales associates to work for me, and then kind of build an internal team, and then maybe not have to sell or work, 5 days a week. I like to go to 3 or 4. And then maybe my vision is just to be the face of this team, right? Just to say, okay, I can go out and do those public relation things and drive business into the dealership at some point, and just do my community engagement and be the face of this team. And if I get 4 or 5 people doing that, then I can back off of selling, let them run it, and then see where that goes and work 3 days a week. I mean, that would be ideal, right? I mean, and not really miss a beat, right? So
Bro,
little background.
Remember the days, the Bill Wink days? Like, dude, you were in that dealership all day, man.
Dude, crazy. I know. Now I'm 5 days and I'm thinking, okay, I got to somehow figure it out to 4. My number 1 assistant, Myrna, I'm going to have her selling at beginning of the year. I'm going to have her role filled. I got another guy coming on that he's going to be selling, and they all work for me. So I'm literally building this team. Then, I can just back off a little bit from pounding the pavement as much, with sales.
Yeah.
And, just a little background on Carlos. I mean, he's never sold a car before. He's been with me for 2 years, and he's averaging 50 cars a month on a 100% relationship. He doesn't take a dealer driven opportunity. I mean, that's the agreement. He doesn't take a phone up, an internet lead. It's all self-generated. And he's selling 50 cars a month right now, which never sold a car before. So they're just like, the dealership is like, how did you do that? Could you do it again? When I first mentioned it, they're like, you want to do what? Like, what are you talking about? You're so busy. What do you mean you want to hire a person? I'm like, and then they're like, well, why don't we just do that? Because I told them what I wanted to do. And I'm like, well, why don't you? I go, oh, wait, you have, and it failed. I go, can you allow me just to do this? It's not going to cost you a penny. And, then obviously I get an override on what they do. I don't cost him anything, right? He's actually benefiting from it. And I get an override from the dealership. So that's actually helped me financially as well, getting through this time, because now I still have his cars that we're profiting from. But I'm going to get Myrna to do it. I got another guy to do it. And then who knows, it could lead into, 4 or 5 people, and we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one question I ask everybody that comes on the show, but I gotta ask the cheesy question of the show, man.
Let's do it.
I can't. Did you see this, man, back in those days? Did you imagine like being on this side of things? Like, did you have that vision?
Not to this point. I never believed what was possible because I never had the blueprint. I didn't know what was possible at the time. So I said, I wanted to be successful. I was able to see Jerry Turfey, my old partner, who was doing really good. He was doing 40, 50, and that was my goal. My goal was to say, man, if I could do 40, 50 a month, I'm set. I'll sign up right now and I'm good. Until I started achieving those next levels, right? Then I hit 50 and I was like, wait, I think I could do another 10 or 12. Then I did 60 and I'm like, well, I could shift a couple of things here and change my process and do, another 15. And at every level, I wanted more and felt I can achieve more. And then got to that point. At 20, never thought I could sell 100. No, never. Right? I never thought I'd get to that point. But I never stopped believing. Once I hit that one pivotal point in my life where I said, okay, I think it was 60, and I hit 60, and I was like, at that point, I mean, there was no going back, and
yeah,
there's still more room. Again, there's still actually more. It's just working smarter and changing process. It's what Charity said earlier, being aware of what you can enhance and where you can actually fix things. And but I've been so blessed, man. This industry has been extremely, extremely good to me. And that's why I like doing things like this and appreciate what you do for our industry. And, because it's some sort of just giving back to an industry that had been so good to me.
Yeah, man, to both of us, man. This has been awesome. Dude, man, so great to have you back on the show.
Awesome, dude. Always a good time.
Good to connect with you. Say hello to Foureyes when you talk to him, man.
I will. Definitely.
Gave me the start, so,
Awesome, dude. You got it.
Yeah, there's one question that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and that question is, where do you see the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years and why? But you already answered this, so I'd be interested to see how much your perspective has changed in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, we're man, it's going good. I think it's very positive. We're going to keep increasing sales. I think it's more pivotal now than ever to get involved as a community and build relationship type business. I think the transactional side might change a little bit. People want to do business with people they know. So I think that is very pivotal for these, young salespeople out there to kind of get involved with your community now, so you're ready to go. But I think our industry is booming, and it's going to continue to be that way. Whether it be, going electric, which seems like, the next 5 or 7, 8 years, you might see that a little bit more. But for now, man, I love it. I wouldn't change a thing.
Right on, dude. Ali, thanks again for doing this, bro. Man. Really appreciate having you on. Charity, thanks for hosting this with me. And there it is, folks. What can I say? The GOAT. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's all the time we have for today. And as usual, we'll talk later.
We only host a well-respected. The vendor LexisNexis. We don't sell digital marketing.
What you do?
We inspect it with our DT vendor management solutions. We come in like the EPA to clear out the pollution.
Take the trash out.
So keep your P&L clean. Your inventory lean.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust Foureyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try Foureyes for free, visit foureyes.io/dealertalk. That's foureyes.io/dealertalk.